Hello and welcome. Welcome to the RGA Network again. Today I have a very special guest. I am thrilled to introduce you to Katrin. Welcome, Katrin.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to be a part of this. I'm just so thrilled.
Great. So I've known Katrin for, I think, about 12 years, well over a decade. And Katrin studied with me way back then, maybe like 10 years ago. I'm not sure exactly how many years, but it was a long time ago. She studied in our school, and we remained friends after. She did a mentorship with me, and then since then we've co-hosted many retreats together across the globe. We share a love for adventure, astrology, and many other things too. So, Katrin, welcome to the RGA Network. Thrilled to have you here. Today, you're going to learn a lot about Katrin. She's going to, I think we spoke last night and we decided that it would be important to talk to you a little bit about the skies of 2021 as well. But before we do that, Katrin, do you want to share a little bit about your journey with astrology, so our listeners know how you came to this path overall?
Sure. Yeah, I've been fascinated with astrology ever since I was a teenager. But back then, the image of astrologers was this old guys with long beards and kind of serious, a little scary, and, very fascinated, but just like, oh, I don't know about this. So, but as luck would have it, right when I was going through an important Pluto transit, once in a lifetime Pluto transit, I happened to meet Rebecca. And I was just floored. I was like, oh my God, astrology could be fun. It could be empowering. It can be beautiful. So immediately I booked a reading with Rebecca. And that was a life-changing time and a life-changing reading, really. Because the way she put it in perspective, like what the Pluto transit, what its deeper meaning was, and what that sort of crazy time in my life where I suddenly was just kind of like blowing up everything and just questioning everything, saying like, nothing's working, let's blow it up. So that's Pluto. Pluto, on by Moon. So deep emotional patterns from the lineage, from the female, from mother's side, and all this cleaning stuff. So she put it in really excellent perspective and just helped me so much, because I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yes. And this is once in a lifetime. So just might as well go for it, full tilt. So that ended up being an amazing year. And it just gave me such kind of courage to live by, like to really go for it in those sort of seemingly difficult times, but how much learning and how much growth there is. So that, I feel like my life is sort of before the Pluto moon and after Pluto moon. And after is distinctly better because I'm really not afraid of those kind of experiences anymore. And that was such a gift. So that was, amazing experience with Rebecca. And after that, it was maybe a year or two after that, studied with Rebecca. And that was back in old days when you had an actual, small live group meeting, astrology school. So it was just super fun. It was very like that warmth and sense of community as well.
The living classes, yes.
I know, that was just so sweet. That was just like, I was so looking forward to that time every week. And it was just really, really special. And I'm still friends with a lot of the people that were in that class, which was probably like about 10 years ago. So, ever since then, I feel like, Pluto made me fall in love with astrology deeply, dangerously, deeply. So, as a practice, I started doing readings for friends, and it just sort of grew from there. And one of the other things that Pluto time really took me deep into was shamanic work and dream work, and, anything to get to those layers of the self that are kind of hidden from the conscious mind. So that has blended in with my astrology work as well, and my sort of personal exploration of life. So
I know, alongside astrology, you've definitely explored various other modalities, including shamanic work, transformational coaching, and I really admire now how you've sort of woven those a bit into your astrological practice. And that makes it quite different, especially the coaching work. And I think another reason why I really trust Katrin to be a part of our network is because of her background in coaching as well as astrology too, which I think brings a whole nother layer into it. As she has a lot of, if you don't mind me saying, earth and fire in her chart,
Mhm.
she will hold you to the fire, but do it kindly. Would you like to talk a little bit about how you integrate your coaching work, the transformation coaching work with astrology? And perhaps what is transformation coaching too?
Yeah, well, this is sort of my personal growth and growing edge for the past several years has been this journey deep into transformational coaching. And what has emerged from that as my own kind of articulation of it, I call it flow coaching. So flow coaching is basically guiding people to their own wisdom to really live in flow with the elements of nature, with what's going on, with their deeper wisdom, with the whole kind of unfolding of life.
That
And we
works
all
so
have
well with
that.
astrology. I can see why
That's
that you integrate that
absolutely,
into the astrology readings. Yeah.
absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like astrology without the planets. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's kind of taking it. At first, it kind of scared me because it was like taking away that beautiful symbolic language of astrology and going kind of directly to what's behind the language of the planets, that wisdom, that harmony that's behind all that, and kind of diving directly into that with some questions, with some conversation, really deep listening, with some loving disruption. It's like coaching mentor Michael Neal uses that word, loving disruption. It's really with coming from the heart, really being full on advocate for the client, but also being willing to poke and put a fire under the butt every once in a while, and just have this sense of humor to kind of poke holes in their delusions. Because hey, we all get caught in our delusions, and it's just super helpful to have a mirror, someone compassionate and aware, to have that mirror, and for us to see our awesomeness and flawsomeness, our flaws and awesomeness.
I love that word. Did you make that up?
No, actually, that comes from another really fun astrologer, Robert Ohado.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like
Awesomeness. Thank you,
awesome.
Robert, for that.
Yeah.
So it would be that's fascinating. And also I know from our co-creating retreats together, your background in shamanism. Now, I know these days a lot of people throw the word around shamanism and shamanic astrology often, but I know this is something that you've been delving deeper into for a very long time. So I think and as you're when you book with Katrin on our site too, you'll see she has a very unique drop down of specialization offers that we're offering from her, including the shamanic astrology and a couple other sort of more coaching edge type of things too that she'll be offering in the RGA network as well. So would you like to speak a little bit about your shamanic astrology too and your experience with shamanism? I'm so curious.
Yeah, sure. With the shamanic background, it's sort of in my blood. I come from the Nordic country of Estonia, and the culture there in the far north, that's actually sort of where the word shaman comes from. A Tungus, Siberian language, means the one who can see in the dark. So I kind of grew up with some of that in my blood. I mean, it was, generations back, so it wasn't so frontal, but part of that sense of belonging and directly interacting with nature, with, talking to trees, it's kind of normal for Estonians. So yeah, so that was in me. But then what really kicked me into going deeper with that was that Pluto, that, shamanic Pluto, going deep into the underworld and accessing those states where that's beyond our minds, our quick sort of little analytical minds. That is, our Western culture, we train them so well, but to get to the heart, to get to the body, to get to those deeper soul levels, it's like we need to let go of the mind, go deep. And for me, really, the drum journey ended up being just the most direct, the most easy, and also the safest way of accessing these states. So personally, yeah, that was healing for me. And then I, integrated that into my work, my shamanic astrology sessions, basically. So how I do it now is I do an astrology reading, go into the client's chart. We discuss, the transits, what's happening right now, what are the energies. So the first part of the reading is, fairly normal astrology reading, I would say. But then we go on this deep journey, and I guide the client into deep relaxation and with some, words and the drum to really get their authentic, their own intuition. let the forces of nature speak to them, let them experience it in their bones, in their body, in their cells. So they get sort of the direct message, the direct download. So they might get to meet Pluto, they might get to meet Neptune, so Venus. So yeah, and it's really fun, and it really deeply transformative at the same time. Like, feedback that I've gotten from clients is that, yeah, it transformed them on a kind of a cellular deep level that sort of goes beyond the mind, and it really accesses deep creativity, healing in that way that's kind of like bypasses this sort of analytical thing, and it just does the work. It does the work. So that's how I've melded it. That's how it's formed now. And with the retreats, of course, we do that in a group setting too. We do group shamanic journeys, which are also very
yes. I love that, because there's so much when we bypass the conscious mind that can seep into our bone marrow, right? And it sounds like what you're doing very much, through music is a Neptunian sort of thing where we can bypass the conscious mind and really feel things on that kinesthetic, inner or somatic level, versus just the information delivery that astrology sometimes is. So that's wonderful to include that. A whole lot of different modalities. Not all of us receive also in the same way. I feel like there's just a lot less of that now. Also, I'm dating this recording, but in the COVID world, there's so little sense of experiential awareness. And, with these sort of talking heads on Zoom screens too, we lose that.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you're finding a way to really deliver that experience, whether it's through, video or in person, but that's so
absolutely. I was at first, I was a little doubtful if it was going to be, possible to do that on Zoom, but well, this COVID time just pushed me to try it, and it was really, really wonderful. It really carried across, and the clients had still a very powerful experience. And actually this summer, one of the clients literally hired me to talk to her trees.
I love it. I love it.
She had to have this tree cut down in her yard, and she was, kind of heartbroken about it, but it needed to be done. So we kind of did a ceremony, and we talked to the trees, and found the moon with astrology calendar, found a good time to do it. So
this is why I love Katrin so much. Thank you. Yeah, yes, beautiful. I mean, you're really an animist as well. It sounds like, and a living connection with all living things and not. So in terms of your astrology chart, I feel like some of the elements might be interesting to talk about now in regards to that. Perhaps your Neptune on the ascendant, the fire and earth. I wonder how does your own chart play into the kind of astrology that you do and how you deliver it? Like, do you want to talk a little bit about your own chart?
Sure. Yeah. I feel like the Neptune, since it's right on the ascendant, it just colors everything that I do. And I feel like you were one of the people who really pointed it out. I mean, you were the person who pointed it out to me, and really, again, like, held that beautiful, compassionate mirror and helped me kind of integrate that gift, instead of being kind of, as a kid, like this, space cadet, to being like, wow, I'm really plugged in. I'm really plugged into this bigger picture of these. So that informs my astrology, because I'm really fascinated by the bigger cycles. Like the shifts of cycles that are happening now this year, I'm just like so into it. And with every reading, even if it's a very kind of specific personal question, I bring that bigger picture context into it, because I feel like it's so helpful for people to have that bigger picture view and see sort of where they are in these life, these big currents of the ocean, and how that fits into, like, sometimes it is like the Buddha thing, it was a once in a lifetime transit. So just to see, oh, wow, this is a once in a lifetime time. It's like this bigger dimension of time. So I feel like that's the Neptunian part, sort of integrating this wider landscape, these sort of currents that are oftentimes unconscious, subconscious, to help I'm aware of that. So.
Yeah, and even the music work you do through shamanism feels very Neptunian to me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I since I have that Neptunian kind of tuned in way of living, I love it now that I'm fully kind of owning it and fully really enjoying it, being into it. So I kind of impart a little bit of that to, clients, whoever wants to take it, to what extent, but it's like inspires them to kind of open up as well. And that's what people sort of say. They feel like, oh, I feel more light, I feel more spacious, I feel more relaxed into the rhythm of nature. after sessions. So that's part of it. And then I have this really solid Earth part of me, the Taurus Sun, Capricorn Moon. So that's part of my life as far as even doing some real estate work, renovating old houses. That's another part of my life journey. But as far as astrology, it really helps me to kind of ground that. So it's not just floating in the space with Neptune, but really grounding it into the earth and having really kind of practical side of it as well. So, financial side and career guidance. So that's, I figured, like one of the things that I would love to offer with RGA is the career guidance, because I feel like with the coaching work, especially, a lot of people are coming to me with that. And this time certainly is a very, very kind of topsy-turvy transformational time. So people are changing their career tracks, they're, starting new things, ending things. So that's the very earthy, how to navigate these things and keep your feet on the ground and, to kind of.
Yes, it's true. We need that now more than ever too. That sort of solid earthy guidance is absolutely helpful alongside the Neptunian immersion. So yeah, I mean, I feel like both really speak through the coaching and your earth quality of holding people to the fire and maintaining, as well as Neptune. So it's so exciting to have all of your talents here to share on our website now, Katrin. I'm thrilled. And I mean, hopefully when the world opens up, so we're saying now again, we will be co-hosting, co-creating retreats once again, and you're all invited. So we will let you know when that happens as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Those have been such amazing transformative times, and so fun too. Just really that sense of adventure in a community together with the retreat group. Usually it's been sort of, we keep them kind of small enough, usually maybe, maximum 10, a little bit more than that. So it's like really, we got a sense of like family and group and adventuring together and really supporting each other. So there have been some beautiful friendships born out of those retreats as well. So that's.
Yes. I think we're all still in some of the WhatsApp groups from those retreats many years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have the Yelapa ladies. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Shout out to the Yelapa ladies, right? Absolutely. So
yeah, I think some of them are tuning in now. I think Janet is tuning in. So shout out to Janet.
So maybe we should have a look coming out of this crazy 2020. I know one of your interests is the outer planetary cycles, the metacycles. So I was thinking we could dive into a little bit of what 2021 has in store coming up.
Sure. Yeah, that is like last year when I started looking into, this was back in 2019, I started looking into 2020. I was just like, when I found out that the 20-year shift is actually part of a 200-year shift, coming out of this long Earth cycle into the air, I got just so excited. So,
right.
And so
that cycle, to reiterate it, it's the two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, come together every 20 years for a very important meeting. And for the last couple hundred years, they've been having that very important meeting in Earth signs. For the last couple hundred years, right, we've been pulling resources out of our Earth. Industrial revolution, coal, oil, gas, right? We've been dealing with the Earth as the main thing to extract from. And a few hundred years before that, there was fire, air, and water. And so it's been like, I don't know, over 1,000 years since the Jupiter and Saturn are coming together in an air sign. And this is huge, as they do. So, and for the next couple hundred years, we'll be in the element of air. So that means we're starting the cycle in like about a month, it looks like, because it's November 18th as we're making this video. So in a month from like now, Jupiter and Saturn meet in an air sign, the sign of Aquarius, and that sets the tone for the next 20 years. And actually the next couple hundred years, Jupiter and Saturn will be meeting in air. So what are your thoughts about moving from Earth to air?
Well, I'm like the environmental issues have been dear to my heart ever since I was a child. That was like my own kind of social activism, was a little environmental protester there when I was 13 and 14, going on marches and things. So I'm just really excited that humanity's creative playground is shifting from the earth to air, because like the earth really needs a break. Like we are busy little creatures. We are creators. We are these, we are restless. So we get our hands into the sandbox, we do stuff. We've been playing in a sandbox of earth. And we have, created some amazing, wonderful things. Even just the fact that we're able to communicate like this over the internet right now, that's part of that creation. But yeah, we kind of messed up the sandbox pretty well. So now it's like, okay, the Earth needs a break. So we're going into air, and the rest of our lifetimes, as well as other next generations, children, grandchildren, who are, they'll be in the element air. So it'll be such a fundamental shift that I feel like it's almost, I feel like the way to approach it right now is to just kind of like expect the unexpected. It's really just to open your mind a little bit to like, oh, there's possibilities coming there that I have no idea of, that I really don't know. And then just to kind of relax into that unknowing and to really go with the guidance moment to moment and to really kind of float on those air currents. Like I love that the conjunction, the grand conjunction on the 21st is happening on this beautiful fixed star called Altair, which is in a constellation of the eagle. So the eagle, having that eagle, how does an eagle fly? They hardly make an effort. They just float on these beautiful air currents really high up, and they get that big picture perspective. So I feel like the eagle eye vision is our sort of guidance there, because there's just, we can't plan it. We can't sort of do it in that sort of old style Earth way of like step 1, step 2, step 7, step 8, that's just not going to work. And here's an Earth girl talking that, so like, it's serious.
The codes are changing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The codes are changing, the possibilities are changing, the technologies are changing. So there's so much innovation coming down the pipeline that we can just really approach it with a great sense of openness, playfulness, flexibility, that eagle eye perspective, and realizing that, literally there's this common expression saying things are up in the air. How are things? Oh, they're up in the air. Oh, yep, they'll be up in the air, especially next year, because our primary aspect will be a square between Earth sign Taurus, Uranus, the planet of rapid change, innovation, liberation, in the sign of Taurus, Earth, and squaring, Saturn in Aquarius. So we'll have this massive structural change, lots of topsy-turvy, square is a dynamic, it's an activating aspect. It won't be, people are like, oh my God, let this 2020 be over. Like 2020, well, we can chill. I'm like, not really. We'll be able to create, we'll be able to access this bright new energy, these amazing possibilities, but it won't be a chill down year. No.
No, we're not going back to normal. There is no normal. There's nothing we're reverting to. We're entering a completely new paradigm here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think like I talked about a year ago, I remember giving this talk about the year ahead. And I remember just exclaiming to everyone how this was going to be a flip script year. And they kind of looked like, huh, what, how could everybody, when we're like that little fly crawling across the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, you only see what's right in front of you. And it's sometimes hard to envision these macro shifts, but truly this is so much bigger than any of us that we're changed, the codes are changing that run our whole program here on Earth. So as you were saying, the ways that we've been doing things methodically and specifically, I mean, I'm sure technology will grow leaps and bounds with this, but it's going to grow outside of these little devices like our phones and everything. At one point the internet was just in like science fiction movies, and bots and things like that. And even Skype was something you saw in like the old sci-fi movies, like those sort of things. Oh, they're on a screen. Wow. And all of those things have clearly happened. And now it's like, well, so what's next? What's after the internet? There's the next level of that. And a whole new way of communicating and sourcing energy. I know I'm an environmentalist, very much like you, and I think a lot about how we've been sourcing energy too from the earth. And as we're moving into the element of air, electricity, the Tesla products, things like that, is just the scratching the surface of what we're starting to explore, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, and the technology, they're already there. So it's like, actually this very house here right now where I live, we got solar panels on the roof. The whole house runs on solar, and it's running on those air-to-air heat pumps. So it's using the air element along with the fire element of the sun. So this is, we're not burning any fossil fuels here anymore. So it wasn't even that hard. It wasn't that expensive. So it's actually, it's pretty amazing what's already possible now and the possibilities that are opening. And I feel like with the parallel with the technological advancements, there are I've really seen that with clients and friends. There's this opening up of our own minds and our own capacity of perception. We're accessing these wider, bigger picture intelligence. And that is actually very much what my coaching is about, is to guide people to really kind of trust that and notice that and to access that more and more. That sort of real-time responsive intelligence that we all have access to. We all have access to that inner net of everything. Consciousness, some people call it God, some people call it Great Spirit, call it intelligence of the universe, whatever, names you can find, but that we are all plugged into that. And I feel like that is waking up big time. It's coming online. So that is like the internet. Yeah, fine. This is cool what we're doing here. But the next level, it's just It's coming.
Completely. Yeah, it's air rules, reorientation and perspective. And it's like that concept of like, oh, when we step back, this is all put into perspective. And the further we step back, what I find, at least that's something that astrology does, is it gives you perspective. And sometimes it's sort of a healing experience to step back from something and you recognize your place in it. And that's what can happen with this air as well. It's like we're coming out of the stellium in Capricorn, where we've been just like, the grind, we've been pushing through, we've been dealing with the earth, we've all been working insane hours these years, a lot of us have, and we've been pushing ourselves, and we've just come up against the last degrees of Capricorn. And as soon as that happens, we reach that point where we can't go any further in Cap. It's like, okay, we then like explode into an entirely new element of air. And we are then, it's not like everything's going to change in a day, but over the next 20 years, we're all sort of getting hip to the game that there's other ways to operate as, for this 20-year cycle begins in Aquarius. I love what you said about Altair and the grace and the ease of the eagle. Like, we don't have to push in the way we've been doing. That fixed star Altair is one of my favorites too. So I'm so happy you mentioned that. And you really think of how the eagle is just effortlessly soaring. And that's sort of the quality of the Jupiter, Saturn, and Aquarius in this 20-year period. What if there's ways where we don't have to just like rape the earth for the oil and do all these things? And that energy, as you say, can be through the sun and wind. And as you're saying too, it's not that hard. And these things can become much more widespread, which is very exciting. There's a couple other elements in 2021, like the other planets, Uranus going to Taurus, which is it's in Taurus, but it continues to hang out in Taurus, which feels like a really analogous theme to what we were just talking about. So I was wondering what your thoughts are too on the Uranus and Taurus transit. Uranus being the planet revolution.
Yeah, Uranus, actually, this is kind of fun because this is actually happening in my chart right now. Taurus and Uranus is going over my sun, the 2020 second half and first half of 21. So from a personal perspective, from just how it feels, in my life, it's actually very liberating. It's like, the Taurus energy can become a little stuck. It can be a little comfortable, just cozy. So it kind of pokes me. This year I've stepped out of my comfort zone, like big time. I've taught my first online classes. I've started to do videos. So really it pushes that Taurus out of its cozy comfort zone and out into the world and out into rapid development, rapid learning, and just liberation also from my previous sort of sense of self or who I thought I was. Like, that's just kind of blown open, and it's just so much more free. And I feel like Uranus, their deepest message is liberation. So in the sign of Taurus, material liberation from our sort of clinging to the material things, to our values, where we evaluate each other and our own lives just on a basis of what's in our bank account. Like Taurus rules our values. So it's like, hey, like, what if we valued each other just for the beauty and brilliance and just the soulfulness that we are, and how amazing would that be? And what a different mode of creating value would come out of that. That's what I feel like this RGA network is a beautiful example of that. It's a very, Uranus and Taurus and this Aquarian vibe thing, it's a business, but it's expanding in a very supportive way, inclusive. It's like sharing and networking. So I feel like that is very much like the business changes that are going to be coming, and being flexible, being innovative, but yeah, really kind of being okay with getting out of your, get your butt out of the comfort zone, and this, yeah, I'm actually really loving this energy. This little,
I wonder,
it's my personal.
yeah, I mean, just hearing like everybody's comments also in the last 9 months, it sounds like you mentioned values, and the biggest comment I've heard is like, I'm changing my values. People are all saying, wow, my values have really changed during COVID and quarantine, and I don't value this anymore as much because I've had more time to think and reevaluate life. So already what's been happening feels like such a Uranus and Taurus, it's like a version of people like reorienting themselves with their values already. And a lot of these people are like, why was I even having that home? Why not live in an RV and travel? Or why do this? Like people are like leaving complete lifestyles right now, questioning all of their values as well. And there's this whole new homesteading trend, people starting their own societies and communes in Vermont or wherever right now, so many new ways of connecting to the planet and realigning with the earth's rhythms, it seems, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've experienced a lot of that too, and heard a lot of that. And I feel like the earth itself, it's like the energy of Gaia, the energy of the earth, like as listening to the earth is really kind of moving and shaking and waking us up to. I remember when Uranus first went into Taurus it was May of 2018, and I was sitting on my little sailboat in Mexico and reading about this massive kind of shift and earthquakey type thing that happened in Hawaii, where the Kilauea volcano, just this lava came out and spread out all over these subdivisions and stuff. It just covered up
At the moment.
Yeah, it was like that. It was within that day. I mean, it was just like, wow. So it's like, okay, Earth is checking itself. She's waking up. And, we've noticed Uranus and Taurus, it's a longer transit. It's 2018 to early part of 2026. So it's sort of the background of this era, really. So the Earth is not as stable. The climate is not as stable as it once was. Of course, a large part thanks to us humans. So we're kind of like, hey, we can't ignore this anymore. Like the wildfires, the hurricanes, the floods. So it's a wake up call. Uranus is the great awakener. So it can sometimes feel like a rude awakening, but it's really worthwhile to wake up and to listen. So I feel like that is another one of those themes of Uranus and Taurus. And the more open we are to shifting and listening to the messages that we're getting about shifting our life, our values, the way we interact with the earth, the easier it will be. I mean, earth will meet us more than halfway. We are earth. We are not separate. But it's like the more we fight against that tide, the more we have to get really shaken. So
That's such a good way to put it. Yeah, exactly. We are Earth. We are part of Earth. And I know you and I talk about that a lot in the retreats we co-create in the ecosystems astrology as well. And that's a lot of what Katrin and I speak of often is in astrology is how we are all Earth and how living in harmony with the Earth is first recognizing the Earth within you and as well. And that's kind of a way that I think we like to approach this work is um, through more of an earth-based approach. I was just for people to feel the elements within themselves and immersions in them as well, the world also. With this trend, Uranus Taurus, I know it's going through a lot of, it's interesting that the planet, an air kind of planet, is an earth sign, and then Saturn, an earthy kind of planet overall, is in an air sign, right? And they're both squaring off each other. So even though this is happening, it with that Saturn square, it also feels like there is tension there, right? There's always going to be, and tension always predicates action and change. So yeah, I mean, this year is not a walk in the park. There is more tension, and tension will create change too. So I don't think it's just all like, oh, we're going to expand into new technologies and float along. Sure, the change will activate us to find solutions, and being sublimated in certain ways we'll say unacceptable. No, we have to find another way. Because that whole Saturn in Aquarius thing, I think about, you know, as the whole world, we've been confined in quarantines or travel restrictions and things like that. I can't help but think as well, are there going to be other restrictions on socializing and the internet, ways that we interact? And perhaps some of them will be good, some of them will be ways that, like, maybe certain things like sharing data will be made illegal, maybe Saturn in Aquarius will do some of those good things as well. What are your thoughts about that transit also?
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like creating boundaries and understanding, healthy boundaries in this digital world, and to owning our digital, presence, and understanding how much of our life is really on those online channels right now, and just starting to kind of understand it and regulate it in a healthy way. It's absolutely one of the positive ways that Saturn can manifest. And Saturn, Saturn in Aquarius is very strong. It's in its, traditional old school Hellenistic rulership there. So it's a strong energy. It wants to create structures. So it's, in and of itself, it's neutral. So it's really us what kind of structure to create, whether we let it go into some kind of, totalitarian, ideological kind of heavy duty thing, or, that could be one of the options. Or we could create some healthy structures, ultimately like a sort of ideal that percolates up for me would be to create a structure, the Saturn structure, that is open enough, Saturn in air, structure that is supportive yet open enough that holds everybody's uniqueness, that allows for everybody's uniqueness. Aquarius rulership, the modern ruler is Uranus, this planet of liberation, quirkiness and uniqueness and quick development. And then the traditional rule of Saturn, of structures, of sort of support and creating these boundaries and rules. So to have a structure of rules that would actually support individual freedoms, like that would be the best of both worlds. Like structure doesn't have to be a structure versus individuality.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us wants to live in dual anarchy. Like I think that's a healthy option. So to have create these structures, and there will be a lot of, next year I feel like it would be kind of a lot of discussions, a lot of kind of ideological, wrestling with it too, lots of arguments, lots of different opinions about how to create the structures. What values use our resources, the Taurus. Resources are shifting, how do we use them, who gets them? So there'll be lots of political strife and arguing going on, but that's part of that creative process of being these new cycles. So it's like, not to be afraid of that. So that's why I'm super interested in all of this. And some of my clients too, they're, social activists or, kind of movers and shakers, which I love. I'm really just like, yes, people do it, please, and I'll support you in every way I can. So that's my passion as well, is to support that social change. So that's my sort of vision of next year, that it won't be easy. There'll be some tussling around going on and how to create these structures. So
I love that way of seeing it, Katrin, of Saturn creating the container really for the Aquarian things to happen, and sort of that square. The more we work it out, can it actually turn into a trine? Can both sides talk enough that they can understand each other and find solutions for that Saturn-Uranus square? Love that. You're so blessed to.
Yeah, and I've actually learned this year, I have learned to love the square this year, because that's all I got. Like the first half of the year, I had all the squares in my chart going on. And it really put me, my kind of comfort-seeking Taurus into action. Like this COVID time, I was like, my European clients were bored. They were like, Estonia, they're like, hey, we're inside. Oh, come on. You talked about creating a course. I was like, yeah, someday. I was like, okay, now. So it's like within a week, I was like, I put it together, and there we were, doing our first astrology class online with 15 people. Sure. And it was so much fun. We did it like a second group of 15. So it was April and May. So that was all squares. I looked at my chart and it was like not a single trine in sight, because like the trines can sometimes make us a little lazy, a little comfortable. There's nothing wrong with that. It's to enjoy these times when things are just easy. But I just learned a new appreciation for the square. It really does provoke us into action. It challenges us into action. So it depends if we accept that challenge. So I feel like next year for all of us, it's like to accept and to look at that Saturn-Uranus challenge as like, oh no, more strife, more uncertainty. it's like, hey, there's this creative tension here. Like, how can we move with it? How can we create with it?
So I love it. So in the coming year, I think in the readings that we will be doing, of course, we look at how the square works in your chart. Like that's obviously something we consider, as well as the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, as it affects everybody differently. I'll say this, as I don't know if I said it at the beginning of the reading, not the reading, our chat. If you're interested in a reading with Katrin through the RGA Network, which is where her readings are all shown. And we have many different options of the shamanic astrology, the career focus, and also natal chart, year ahead, everything. You can, if you're on live here, you can go onto my website, Rebecca Gordon Astrology, under readings, RGA Network, and you'll find Katrin. I completely trust her as a reader, as I've known her for 12 years. She studied with me over 10 years ago. And since we've done many things, mentorships, co-created retreats together, so much. So I would love to share with you the genius of Katrin. Please explore her work as well. And if you are on YouTube, you will just see the link below where you can find her and more information about the network as well. I just realized we were running out of time. So I wanted to see, I love talking about the year ahead though, and it'll be interesting to listen to this a year later and see how it all played out too, and this whole new cycle in air. Is there anything you want to add, Katrin?
It feels pretty complete for now. I mean, I'm actually, the one little detail is the nodes right now. Sagittarius, Gemini axis nodes, and the North Node being in Gemini. So North Node is sort of the direction of most soulful growth. And as a society, this is where it is. This is where the growth is. And in the direction of Gemini, again, air sign. And it's just this curiosity and openness. I mean, Gemini is a mutable air sign. It's the sign of spring, the birds and the butterflies. There's all this communication, all this action, a lot of sort of cross-fertilization and creativity happening, sharing information. So just to be really open to listening, sharing, to be genuinely curious. The South Node is in Sagittarius, which in its South Node, like we're going to look a little bit more of the shadow side, can be kind of like, okay, I know how everything is. You can't tell me, like, I got it, I've totally got it. So it's like they're being really kind of rigid and a little too much hubris in your own worldview, and then you think you know how things work. So just to kind of drop that knowing and to kind of drop into like what the Buddhists say, the fresh, the beginner's mind. So that is one message I would love to get across to people. It's like, just pretend to be kid, like, just pretend this curious kid and just to approach, because it's such a new environment that we're all going into, that we can't, like, if we think we know what we're doing, we're just really,
I love that, keeping a beginner's mind. That's such a wonderful piece of wisdom for everyone as this new cycle, because we are all beginners in this whole space now. This is the first time that that we've entered anything like this, so we can't act like we know what's up, for sure. I love that, Katrin. Thank you so much for joining me here and being an amazing part of the network. You radiant star, Katrin. Thrilled to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just love this opportunity, and I'm just looking forward to connecting with more of the RGA peeps here. So thank you so much, Rebecca. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. See you soon.
Bye.